Hello and welcome back to another SSD test for the PlayStation 5. I just wanted to add this disclaimer at the beginning because this video was recorded a few weeks ago when the PlayStation 5 software was in beta, and although it's available for everyone and these SSDs do work exactly the same now that the feature is available for everyone, I did think it was important to highlight this video was recorded during the beta, so just to let you know. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's start. Hello and welcome back, and that's right, we are doing another test of an SSD in the PS5. We're using the Beta 3.1 software update that allows us to take advantage of SSDs, and maybe at the time of publication of this video that feature is now widespread and available. Right now I am looking at the Seagate Firecuda 520. Now that is very, very important because the Seagate Firecuda 520 is an SSD that actually has a reported benchmark, this 1TB model at least, of 5000 megabytes per second sequential read, which is 500 megabytes per second less than the recommended minimum from PlayStation. And right now, ever since the recommended figures of SSDs to be used in the PS5 were published, a lot of the SSDs that are just under 5,500 megabytes per second sequential read rated maximum have suddenly dropped in price. And one of the most popular ones out there at the moment is the Firecuda 520, not the 530, which is one of the highest rated PS5 expansion SSDs on the market, but the 520. The 520 because it arrives with 3 years of data recovery services, because it has an enormous durability factor compared to others, and because of that recent price drop. It was one of the earliest generation PCIe4 NVMe M.2 SSDs on the market, and a lot of you have been inquiring about its compatibility with the PS5. Indeed, this is video 4 in my series on this SSD, where in almost every load we've gone for, it has still worked fine. There's only been a couple of times when the inherent cap of maximum 5000 megs has stopped the PlayStation 5 from loading a game at the same speed as the internal SSD, but of course those are games that have been released relatively recently. So without further ado, as you've seen there, these are the 5 games we're testing today. They are all on the Firecuda 520 SSD: Terminator Resistance, No Man's Sky, Red Dead Redemption 2, Dead by Daylight, and of course Hitman 3. And what we're going to do is play these games in a number of ways in preset, predetermined fashions and compare them against the same scenarios as close as we can running on the internal PS5 SSD. Our first game, as mentioned, is Hitman 3. And we aren't looking at any of these 5 games today's ability to load from the PlayStation menu, because a lot of these games have network and internet connectivity checks. They have numerous individual checks with their own servers, and consequently, whenever we try and play these games, it doesn't always match up in a like-for-like scenario on the PS5 internal SSD versus an expansion SSD. It becomes because of the internet connectivity. So what we do is we load saves, and therefore we can create a more controlled load environment which we can then compare the internal SSD versus that of the Firecuda 520. Now, we're running 2 save games from this. We've already done this before in other videos, and I apologise if it's repetitious. However, it's the only way to keep these things fair. We're running 2 levels. The first one is the Dartmoor level, and from here we are running the Baskerville Barney. And again, we aren't doing the mission, we aren't trying to complete the mission, we're just running around the environment and try and force the game to load as many assets, as many NPCs and as many textures in low, medium and high quality as possible to see if the SSD can keep up. So for now, let's go in 3, 2, 1. And we're making our way into the level now. And again, from here, the reason we've picked these custom levels rather than the campaign levels is because these don't have any cutscenes in the beginning, middle or end. It means we can load straight into the level like so and have a look at a lot of the textures that are dotted around these environments and allow us to have a good look at the game's loading assets and whether it's doing a good job of loading the game throughout our test. Now again, I'm not going to try and complete the level. I'm not going to try and assassinate anyone in any kind of meaningful mission way. All I'm trying to do here is progress through the physical environment and push the game into loading a lot of those assets. And again, we've done this a few times before. There's going to be a dude coming up here. We're going to be getting ready to cap this guy from behind this vehicle. And then what we're going to do is take his outfit, and that should allow us to do a much quicker job of exploring the environment. So for now, we'll move into it. There is a dude over there that turns around in around about 45 seconds, so we will find the body eventually. But for now, what we can do is make our way through the villa. Now bear in mind, I will still be caught because I'm not supposed to be here, but this outfit does buy me a little bit of time throughout this and allows me to explore the environment a little better, and therefore double check that the game's loading lighting assets correctly, making sure that the game is loading physical locational assets, and ultimately just allowing us to keep track of the game doing what it's supposed to be doing. As we can see, we're on a rooftop environment here. Let's carry on over there. The game's already decided that this is it, and again, we've got the whole environment, we've got the whole courtyard being loaded, we've got plenty to be getting on with here. Then we'll move over and climb up. And again, it's just good to be able to load as much of the game as possible while in this environment. And again, it's seemingly doing a job. I'm seeing no slowdown whatsoever. I'm seeing right now that the game is doing exactly what I would like it to do. And I think for now, I think we can argue that this is running the game beautifully well. It's being forced to hold in a lot of those assets at once while we're doing our progression. And we can make our way over to the Mendoza save. So let's go there. So again, similar, but this time, although the focus is still going to be on drops in frame rate, resolution of textures, resources being garnered, the main focus of the Mendoza mission that we're going for, known as the Pascal Consortium, this mission has more than 100 NPCs on screen. It will have to chop and change them out in the background, and that is a part of what the PlayStation, and indeed not only the CPU, memory, GPU, but also that SSD 3, 2, 1. They're going to have to do a lot of loading here, so if the SSD is not up to task, this will be a very early way to test if it's going to be a problem. But for now, we're going to make our way forward. We've got this new environment here that we've loaded in, completely new. Different lighting textures, geolocational stuff, NPC, all that kind of thing. And what we're doing for now is making our way over to this dude, where we can now go ahead, subdue him, snap his neck. I'll be honest, I feel a little bad about that because it was wildly unnecessary. But nonetheless, now we can run around this map environment here, which has got lots of NPCs, lots of textures, lots of geolocational stuff, and ultimately allows us to really see if this SSD is going to be a problem as we move closer and closer to more and more evolved textures and graphics here. So again, let's mount there, let's climb down, carry on moving around. Again, lots of textures, not many NPCs here, but the NPCs are about to get a lot busier. So there's one group, about 20, 25 NPCs perhaps there. Then of course we can move forward. It looks like we're being spotted for being suspicious. Lots more NPCs here. Again, a huge textured environment around us, lighting effects. All these NPCs can be bumped into, interacted with, hit, etc, etc. And again, lots of them moving forward. The lighting effects are still working, no low poly textures, not even the distance textures are being problematic there. We're looking at the trees on the right hand side of the screen and the vineyard. We're seeing some of them pop in, you can see that there if we move forward. You can see that area of effect, but again, that's not the SSD, that's just the game, that's the way the game's engine handles this. More NPCs, but for now, I'd say this is running exactly how I would expect it to run. So for now, let's go ahead. And there's those pop there, so there's our circle of influence there around us. But for now, let's make our way into our next game, Terminator. Loading into the game now. Again, we aren't measuring this game from its loading from the PlayStation menu. We are loading this game directly from the infiltration mode. This is where we play as a Terminator, and we've got an open area of map that we can navigate around. There's no plot really. All it is is a kind of open area there where there will be enemies and field of view. So for now, let's go into the infiltrator mode. And from here, we will play on normal difficulty. And ultimately, we'll get kicking in 3, 2, 1. And here we are, we're loading it. We're making our way in. And again, there is going to be an opening cutscene, but this is from a pre-existing, pre-rendered FMV. None of this is being created on the fly. The NVMe, and this has been a good key area where we've seen the difference between a number of SSDs. Indeed, I think I felt a tiny bit of a delay there, waiting for that FMV to load up there. So that's why we keep this FMV in, because it shows us sometimes about the retrieval of the data and how some of those little bottlenecks, particularly the big data rather than the small data, and sometimes vice versa, how these different SSDs behave in a very different way. So once again, this isn't being created in real time, what you're seeing here on screen. This is a pre-existing FMV, but at the same time, it still shows that a big block of data has to be retrieved from that SSD. So for now, we're making our way in. We are in the game. And what we're doing from here is we're just making our way through this title. We're not even going to bother picking up a gun. We're just going to make our way through and hopefully all the way through this, trying to see if we can push this game into having any difficulties. I can change the lighting mode, so rather than utilising the classic 80s shtick Terminator view there, I can go straight into the real world. But what we're looking at here is just running as quickly as we can through the game to try to get the game to show off any struggles that it's going to have. As we can see, here we are at a checkpoint. So already we're hitting difficulty there. I'll be honest, I kind of assumed this Terminator would not lose health this quickly, but we'll find out. For now, I think this is running fine. I know I could pick up a gun, I'm choosing not to. But for now, I'd say this is running very well indeed, and exactly how I would like it to. So for now, the lighting effect's working for me. There's been no drop in frame rate. The AI is running fine. None of these textures are not being swapped out for higher res ones as we get closer in any kind of delay. And for me, that counts that this game is running fine. Let's make our way into game number 3, No Man's Sky. In No Man's Sky, of course, randomly generating a lot of the worlds. And what we do in this test is we use the creator mode. And from here, we're going into a completely random part of the game. And from there, we're going to take off in a ship. We're going to go to a spaceport, get out the spaceport, look around for a second or two, jump back in the ship, head back down to the planet. So again, we're forcing the game to chop out some big textures as quickly as possible, and hopefully maybe give away some of those techniques it utilizes to hide a lot of the loading activity. What we're doing right now is just making sure we've got a load game there. We're starting from fresh, and we're going to go with creative mode. So again, we are running this side by side with the PS5 internal SSD, but bear in mind, creative mode has a huge element of random to it, so therefore we don't know where the planet's going to be or nothing. So don't expect these two to be identical runs. This is about how the game handles these processes. It's also worth highlighting there's going to be a drop in frame rate here. There always is. No Man's Sky just does this. It's really annoying. It doesn't matter whether you're using internal SSD, old gen, new gen console, it just does that. Super annoying. The other thing I will highlight is occasionally I am going to go into the hyper mode of space travel in this game. When it does that, my capture card struggles a little bit to keep up with the PlayStation's own frame rate. So you will see quite a lot of noisy pixelation in terms of the graphics there. But here we go, we're on the environment beneath us. Let's head into space. Again, we're looking to get into the outside. We want to get out of this, and now we want to make our way towards a spaceport. So hopefully the game is going to highlight one for us. And there is our spaceport. Super annoyingly, it is through the rings, so why not? Let's cut through. As you'll see, a lot of pixelation there on screen. I can't see that, but I know you can, but we do have control here. And we can come out of this at any time. Mainly we're just seeing that we can get to the space station. So now we can start making our way into it to try and push the game into having to create a lot more of these assets, or at least handle them as quickly as possible there. Again, this game has had numerous upgrades since its initial launch. A lot of you will know that. And if you did play this game and you weren't impressed with it on day one, I urge you to come back to it, because so much has been done to this game to make it live up to the original expectations of what a lot of us thought this game would be. So again, I do recommend you check it out. Make our way onto there. We've got all the usual people all in there. We'll make our way back to the plane nice and quick. And from here, we're just going to head into the nearest planet. And the main urge here is just to see how much of the game's hidden loading activity it's going to have difficulty hiding. So we're going to go back down to this snow planet here that we've already been on. And while we go down, I know it's pixelated, but I'm going to sort of zoom the camera to the sides to show you guys some of that loading. A lot of a way where we've got the low textures that are being introduced gradually into the background, and at the same time you can see that this kind of heat effect is being used to hide a lot of these assets. So again, it's how quickly the game is going to introduce all of these new elements, which will start to arrive. As we can see, they're in there. And now we can go with the landing sequence, and that's been a very smooth load there. And I'm seeing nothing there that shows that the Firecuda 520 struggled in any way with what we tried to do there. So for now, let's make our way back onto the main menu and go into our next game, which is Red Dead Redemption 2. We're going to be loading a save game in single player. Again, if you've not completed Red Dead 2, please fast forward 3 to 4 minutes, because there is a giant spoiler. This is an end game loading. Consequently, it may ruin a big part of the story for you. So if you are still playing it or you plan on playing it, maybe don't watch this. That is your spoiler warning right there. For now, let's load this game into my save game 1. We're seeing how quickly it loads the game on this Firecuda 520 versus the internal SSD, but also we are looking at how the game runs. Frame rate, assets, draw distance, textures. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Again, the loading for this game on PS4 was pretty long, and even on PS5 it's not the quickest, so do bear that in mind. Don't go thinking this game is being unusually slow. This is genuinely how slow it is, and I know right now you guys can see the PS5 internal SSD, so even with the default PS5 hardware, this game is still not optimized to take advantage of that. It's going to be interesting to see how the PS5 GTA 5 when that arrives, how well that takes advantage of the hardware, if at all. But for now, let's focus on this game and see how it's doing. Loading here, we should be into the game. And here we are in Blackwater. This is where we left off. Again, we're going to stick with the inside view, because this will allow us to keep an eye on the game's generating textures very, very quickly. We've got the bar area here. We can just quickly speak to the bartender. We'll ask for a drink. We'll ask for a quick beer. We'll take the beer with us when we leave the bar. Again, bit of pre-rendered stuff there, so we can go ahead and start moving away from the bar area. And move away. Carry on moving. Go outside into the real world. Drink our beer. Call the horse. Or again, can't call the horse if you're drinking beer. But for now, I think we can go ahead and start exploring the town a little bit, because we've gone into an area, out of an area. I've seen no drop in frame rate, no lowered textures. All of it is running beautifully how there I would like it. And I feel like I may have pressed the accelerate button like I'm playing GTA and consequently pulled out my gun, which is a problem. But for now, let's go ahead and explore and hopefully not die like I did there. But yeah, even the textures, everything's running absolutely fine. Everything from the footprints running fine to the environmental textures, everything around us. It's all running beautifully well there. And again, I think that's good. Let's move on to our last test game, which is Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight, again, a previous generation game. We're running this game with NPCs. We're running an offline mode here that's got bots, and all we're trying to do in this test is load the game and check out the textures, check out how well it loads some of those textures, see if there's any drop in frame rate. And we're trying to not play the game the way the game wants us to. That's really, really important, because we're trying to play this so that the game can't try to half anticipate our actions and hide the loading. So instead of trying to commit any kind of activity in the game that we would expect us to, we're just going to run around the circumference of the map, and then the different textures to see if we can force this SSD with its admittedly lower than recommended spec performance to have difficulty loading those textures or some of those assets, or even seeing NPCs going to a T-pose. So let's move in, go towards the tutorial there. We've got the AI. Let's go with the survive with bots. 3, 2, 1. And this game, again, it has quite a long loading time. I've got to say, given what this game looks like, it's impressive, you know, PS5, you know, with the frame rate and stuff. I'm still very surprised at the loading time of this game and how a lot of these games say they're PS5 upgrades, but they don't optimize the hardware. They're not able to do as much with it as I would have expected. Even this we're seeing here is hiding a bit of the load screen. So for now, let's run around. I know it's a bit dark for you guys. If you look beyond the character's head, you will see a lot of the graphics being rendered in real time because of the draw distance. Just another example of this game not being highly loading optimized there for the PS5 hardware. When you look at things like Ratchet and Clank and you look at Demon Souls, this is not a game that's taken advantage of the hardware on offer here, which again makes me slightly question the whole PS5 optimized thing. We include it, however, because of that poor optimization of loading. We want the game to struggle. We want the SSD to show it has weaknesses, but despite that, it is running fine. We're running into different environments here, trying to force the game to have difficulty with these textures, drop the frame rate, drop the resolution, have difficulty loading the assets correctly, and I've just been found by the monster here. And again, I'm going to make my way into this steel mill looking thing, and hopefully from here we'll see if there's any problems with regards to any lighting, any frame rate, anything like that. This guy's catching up quite a lot, but for now I think we can carry on and say that yep, this is running just as well as I'd like, running exceedingly well, no problems whatsoever. Even if this SSD is supposed to have a lesser performance benchmark, pretty sure that would have killed a person, but never mind. I think this guy's going to do us a favour and take care of that for us. But yeah, I think we can come out of this game now and we'll start making our way into the moving of this game back onto the internal SSD and summarise what we've seen today. Now, again, I know I've done these games a lot on different SSDs and it can be repetitive. Think how I feel playing the same games over and over again. But we need to know that these games can run the same on any of these SSDs and find out which is the best in our big face-offs later. But what's particularly interesting is in our testing of SSDs like the Sabrent Rocket PCIe4, the non-plus version, and the likes of the Firecuda 520, these SSDs have still done very well and been able to play the games just as highly as I would have expected, despite them being less than that 5,500 megabytes per second minimum. Now, a lot of the time one could argue that's because Sony and their own internal SSD has that as the maximum, and therefore they want to make sure this SSD throughout your system's lifespan will always be able to be at least as fast as the PlayStation, if not faster. Consequently, despite my being impressed by this game's loading times in all of the games and all of the videos that I've tested, not just this one, it should be highlighted that there's no guaranteeing that games are going to come in the future where this is going to present itself as a bottleneck. I do still recommend this as a nice affordable option unless in the full release of this software update this drive becomes blacklisted, but it's still a good SSD. It's just a shame that I think it lacks the future proofing because of that recommended minimum that it could. Now do check out the other videos where I've featured the 520 being tested in around 15 to 20 other games. They'll give you some idea about where this drive does have weaknesses and where it doesn't. And of course, the Firecuda 520 should not be misunderstood or mixed up with the 530, a much more recent, more powerful, highly enduring, and ultimately higher performance drive, and definitely one of the top 3, if not in the top 2 SSDs that you should buy for your PS5 upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, click like. If you want to learn more, do click subscribe, because I make a lot of these videos on different SSDs, and if you are looking to upgrade your PS5, these videos will help you choose the right drive. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.